Hopefully this revision session will work this time. So the second time I'm recording this. Anyway, what you need to know for Boolean algebra? Well, Boolean algebra is a fairly straightforward unit as long as you know what the questions will look like. So that's what I'm going to go through today. So there's four things you need to be aware of. The Boolean operators and what they look like. So those are the special symbols we give to and, or, not. So we have and, or, and not. Okay, the three symbols. Truth tables is where the bulk of the question is going to be focused in on, so you have to fill out a truth table for Boolean algebra statements, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Circuit diagrams, based on a statement, you need to draw a circuit diagram. You may need to label items in a circuit diagram, or you might have to kind of like take a circuit diagram and create a truth table. Okay, so it's how you read and create circuit diagrams. And less likely, but specifically for some of the programming questions, you might have to use logic programming, so using and or not in your if statements and your while loops. So, negation is where the truth is inverted. So, taking a true value, it becomes false, and if it's false, it becomes true. So, if it's true, it becomes false. If it's false, it becomes true. We represent it in Boolean algebra as kind of a lazy L, okay, or maybe an L due to press up. I don't know if you want to look at it that way, but that's what the symbol will look like in the exam. When we're talking about circuit diagrams, okay, it will look like this. We'll have a triangle with a circle on the front, okay, maybe a line down lady, maybe lady didn't press up, why not? It will always have one input and one output. Then we have and, or conjunction is its formal name. You don't have to worry about that for the exam though. And is the key one. So this is and. So it uses this symbol here to show and, okay, and that is kind of an upside down V. Okay, and then you have this symbol. So and will always have two inputs, okay? So that's why we have two inputs on the logic diagram, but always one output, okay? When you have this as well, okay, both inputs must be true in order for the output to be true. So as you can see here on this line, the A is true, B is true, so A and B is also true. But if any of them are false, so these two lines here, one of the inputs is false, then the output is also going to be false. And if both the inputs are false, the output is definitely false. Then disjunction or, to give it its more colloquial name, we use a V to kind of represent or in a Boolean algebra, and the logic symbol looks a bit like this, okay? So do make sure you don't mix up the and the or, okay? So or will have two inputs and will also have two inputs, okay? The shapes are different, okay? They're easy to mix up, so do make sure you revise that, please. With an or, only one of the inputs needs to be true for the whole thing to be true. So as you can see, it's true for the first three rows of this one because there's at least one true in each of them. The last one is false because there is no true. Okay, so if one of the inputs or both of them are true, then the output is also true. So the first thing you need to do is fill out the permutations. So to do this, we simply need every single combination of Q and R. So we're looking at these two columns first. Sometimes the exam will fill these columns out for you. Sometimes you have to do it yourself. Sometimes we'll half fill it. Sometimes they won't fill it at all. Okay. Most exam questions I've seen has either had this half filled or fully filled. Okay. These are combinations I've seen so far. So how do you do this? Well, you look at the combination you've got already. So both of them being true, Q being true, R being 0. Okay. So I'm going to make Q 0 and R 1, and then finally in both 0. So as you can see, I've now got all the different possible combinations. Okay, so I've got two letters, so Q and R. There's a maximum of 4 possible values that I can have. Just to be clear, 1 is the same as true, and 0 is the same as false. You're most likely going to get 1 zeros in the exam. So that's the permutations now filled out. Then I've got to basically fill out the last bit. Well, how do we do that? Well, I'm going to have Q as being 1 and R as being 0. So I'm going to do this row here. Okay. Well, first thing I've got to do is not the Q. So it's 1 to begin with. So that's going to become 0, isn't it? Because it's negating, it's reversing. Then I've got 0 or 0. Well, remember in an OR, if both things are false, the output is false, so that gives me a 0 there. Let's look at the next one. Well, here I've got Q being 0. Well, remember it's not Q, so that's going to become 1. And then it's an OR between those two. Well, if either side is 1, it's going to be a 1. Well, they're both 1, so it's got to be a 1. For this one, okay, again, we've got Q as 0, so it's going to be negated, so that's going to become 1. Then I'm going to OR them together. Well, 1 or 0, only one side has to be true for the whole thing to be true, which is why the answer there is going to be 1. So there's the final answer on that one. So if you want to have a little practice, okay, pause the video, have a go at this. I'm going to go through the answer in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to go for the answer now. So first thing I need to do is fill out the permutations. Okay, so these two columns here. Okay, so remember I need every single possible combination. So I need a 0, 1 there and a 0, 0. Okay, then I've got to work out this one. Well, I've now got to do the stuff in brackets first, so the Q or R. Okay, so Q is 1, 0 is R, so that's going to be 1. Okay, so those two all together, that's going to be 1. However, notice the not is the last thing I do. So it was a 1, so that's going to become a 0. Here, if one of those is 1, which it is, that's going to become 1. So the inside the bracket is going to be 1 there. Then I negate that, so 1 becomes 0. Then finally, okay, all those together, well, that's going to be 0, isn't it? Because it's false. Neither of them are true. But I'm negating the answer, so it's going to be 1. So that's how you answer this question here. And there's the full answer if my handwriting is not very neat, which it isn't. So the next step is logic diagrams. Okay, so you need to know the symbols and they link together. Now here I've got two examples, and this is really important. This is where most students make the most mistakes. Okay, is knowing where to put your knots. So in this example, you'll notice that not is outside the brackets. Now remember, according to BIDMAS, we have to do the brackets first. Okay, what's inside the brackets first, which is why the OR comes first. Okay, so we do what's inside the brackets first, and then we put that into the diagram first. We then do the not second, which is why the not comes second in this example. Now, if we look at the next example, we're going to do the not first, aren't we? Because it's not inside bracket, so it's just applying to the A, which is why the A has a not at the first scenario. Then we're going to have the and second, like that. So it's important you know that distinction between them. So if you've got brackets, okay, you do the stuff inside brackets, which is why that one, the stuff inside brackets comes first, and then you do that one second. So we always do brackets first, which means the order would be OR followed by not in this example, not the other way around. The final thing we need to know about is logic programming. So logic programming is where we use ands and ors and nots inside our Python or pseudocode programming. Now this doesn't come up as often. You know, sometimes you can answer questions using and and or you can just do it using nested if statements. The choice will ultimately be yours. Sometimes they might have it as pseudocode examples, but I think this kind of code is easier to be read than it is to write. Anyway, so when you do coding in and or not, you have to write it out fully. Okay, so rather than doing that symbol in your code, you actually write out the word or. If I wanted to do the and, instead of doing that symbol, I'm going to do and you probably already realized if I want to do not, I have to use the word not. Not is less common, okay, because you can easily do it maybe with not equals or reverse your signs, things like that. So we don't tend to see not in Python programming as often. So how do we do it? Now, we are linking, remember, logic, true and false, okay? Which is why it links in with if statements and while loops, because if you remember, if statements will run when it's true, while loops run when it's true. So here, I've got an example, A is less than B. That is going to be either true or false. If we look at this example, A is 5, B is 2, so that is going to be false, isn't it? Because A is not less than B. Then we've got A is not equal to B. Well, they're not equal to each other, so that's going to be true. Because it's an OR, remember only one side has to be true, so the whole thing becomes true, therefore it prints out that. In this example, if I wanted to enter a number, let's say I enter the number 5, well 5 is not smaller than 0, 5 is not bigger than 10, so neither of those are true, so they're both false, therefore the loop won't run. If I enter the number minus 10, well minus 10 is less than 0, isn't it? So that becomes true. It's not bigger than 10, so that becomes false. Only one side needs to be true, so this code would run. So what is this code doing? It's simply checking a range check to make sure the numbers are between 1 and 10. It's a very common range check to do. So this is how you can make use of logic programming. The last thing I will say about it, if you ever want to arrange numbers, okay, do make sure you write out the full condition. So here I've got A is greater than 10, not just greater than 10. Okay, so you're not allowed to do that. This is the correct way of doing it.